Welcome to Midweek Boost. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and that you're looking forward to a great new year. I want to speak on the topic of choose a great new year. Our text comes from the Gospel of Matthew, the second chapter, verses 13 through 23. This is what it says. Now, when they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him. And he rose and took the child and his mother by night, and departed to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Out of Egypt I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted, because they are no more. But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, Rise, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. And he rose and took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a city called Nazareth. And so ends this reading. It was Abraham Lincoln, I believe, who is quoted as saying, Most people are as happy as they choose to be. A woman went to her doctor with a whole catalog of complaints about her health. He examined her thoroughly and came to the conclusion that there was absolutely nothing physically wrong with her. He became convinced that it was her negative outlook on life that was responsible for the way she felt. She'd become filled with bitterness and resentment. So the wise doctor took her into a back room in his office where he kept most of his medicine. He showed her a shelf filled with empty bottles. He said to her, See those bottles? Notice that they're all empty. They're shaped differently from one another, but basically they're all alike. But most importantly, they have nothing in them. Now I can take one of those bottles and fill it with poison enough to kill a person, or I can fill it with enough medicine to bring down a fever, or ease a throbbing headache, or fight bacteria in the body. The important thing is that I make that choice. I can fill it with whatever I choose. Then the doctor looked her in the eye and said, Each day that God gives us is basically like one of those empty bottles. We can choose to fill it with love and life-affirming thoughts and attitudes, or we can fill it with destructive, poisonous thoughts. The choice is ours. In 2 days, we will begin a new year, and the choice is ours. We can fill each of the next 365 days with the ingredients for joy or pain, love or hate, hope or regret. The choice is ours. In the next year, we can be a blessing to those around us, or we can be a curse. We like to think of a new year as a new beginning, a reset, if you will. We go into a new year with hope and anticipation that things this year will be better than last year. 2020 has been a hard year for virtually all of us. The onset of the COVID pandemic brought fear to us all. It brought death to many people, along with much hardship and disappointment. Due to the shutdowns, businesses had to close and some will never open again. Millions were laid off or lost their jobs completely. We've had to learn to social distance and to wear a mask wherever we go. We couldn't go to many of the places we've enjoyed in the past. Schools have been closed, and worst of all, families have not been able to gather together to celebrate holidays, birthdays, and in some instances, people could not even attend funeral services. Churches were closed for months, and some still are. 2020 has not been the kind of year that we would want to repeat. So we look to the future, trusting in the providence of God, hoping, praying, and longing for a better year than the last. We ask ourselves, what will the new year have in store for us? We don't know. We cannot know what the future holds, but we know who holds the future, and we trust him. So in faith, we step into 2021. Things may not be much better for us in the early months of the new year, but we can choose the way we respond to our circumstances. We can choose to be happier. We can choose to believe that God cares for us and will see us through. We can lift one another up, help one another, support one another, and care for one another. If we can't go to church, we can still pray and worship God. We can still experience the joy of our salvation. Ultimately, 2021 can be a wonderful year for us if we will only trust in the Lord and not get discouraged. New treatments and new vaccines are coming out as I speak. We must keep the faith, knowing that God will provide a way and that God will see us through. This will be the last episode of Midweek Boost. When I began this series back in the early spring, churches were locked down and people could not attend worship services. So I decided that a midweek message might be helpful. So I began this series. Most churches are beginning to open now, so the need for this is not as necessary as it once was. I want to thank all of you who watched each week and those who subscribe to my channel. It has been my pleasure to bring you these messages, but it's gotten harder and harder to come up with something new every week. And rather than bore you or repeat myself, I will simply sign off for now. I hope that the new year will turn out to be a wonderful year for each of you, and that God's blessings of health and prosperity, joy and peace will rest upon us all. Happy New Year.